Hello, and today we're going to talk about job letters, specifically cover letters, but also I'm going to mention the other kinds of letters that you might need when you're doing job searching. Now, this PowerPoint was produced by Purdue. I've edited a little bit, made it a little streamlined, but know that it comes from a college that specializes in helping people in writing, particularly practical writing, and that's what we're using as our baseline for this lesson. We have taught this lesson before, but I'm going to be honest with you, in the years past that we taught this lesson, we just gave you guys a template. We can walk over what the rationale was for why these are formatted in a very specific way. So let me get out of the way and talk about that with you. Hello, and welcome to English 12. And today we're talking about job letters, specifically cover letters, but also other kinds of job letters. Um, Now, we're only asking you to write the cover letter, so these other two are just for your benefit in the future. But I'm going to go into the parts of the cover letter and explain why they are the parts. Now, we have taught this in the past, and we just gave students a template, and frankly, you didn't take it seriously. Your cover letter is as important as your resume. All right, so job letters. Overview. We're going to cover cover letter basics, cover letter sections, and yes, there are specific sections of a cover letter. A lot of you don't understand this. I'm going to go into what they are, how to best use them, and why. And it's not hard. It's something that your creativity is just explaining how your prior work actually works with what you want to do. We're going to talk a little bit about cover letter design, and I'm going to send you some example cover letters. And we're going to talk about follow-up letters. All right, what is a cover letter? It is a document that explains your job goals, education, and job history, but also explains why you're capable of filling the specific position at the specific workplace with your specific background. Notice how I added all that there. It's tailored for each job specifically to you. Do not be generic here. You want to stand out. That's going to get you the interview. I am for one of those people, for example, if I can get the interview, I'm kind of likely to get the job. And I bet a lot of you are the same way, but it's really hard sometimes to get that interview. You got to stand out in a stack of maybe 100 and 200 applicants. All right. Sometimes not so much. Right now, the job market's pretty good. So, and we're talking specifically at 2021. But job markets go up and down. So you're going to want to pay attention to this. Why do you need a cover letter? Well, you want to contextualize the information in your resume. And contextualize here is give why you are good at that job. You're going to show that you've thought about it, you've thought about how you in specific are going to be good for that in specific job. Employers use this to get more information about you, to see who can do the job. Do you have the right skills? Read about your past jobs and skills in a quick way, in a way that contextualizes your resume, as I said earlier, to see if you can write and communicate. All right, there are 4 things almost all employers care about. Can you communicate? Can you do basic calculations? And do you have basic logic skills? Do you work well as a team? And do you show up on time and do the work? If you can read and write well and do basic math, they can train you. All right? Remember, we always talk about how making your education relevant for you. Well, that's what's relevant. Your thinking skills. Then they care if you can actually physically or mentally do the work, but if you got the thinking skills, unless it's a manual labor, you have a way to be trained, and that's what you're proving. You're also proving that they're not wasting time interviewing you. And that's what they really care about. Your goal is to get the interview because the interview is going to get you in the door. And a cover letter has a heading. It's a formal business letter heading, and it has a specific format. Has an introduction, has body paragraphs, and a closing. Most cover letters can be cut down to these 3 parts and thus 3 paragraphs. They don't need to be super long, and they should never be more than a page unless the application specifically says so. All right. So this is not a long piece of writing. So those of you who are afraid of long writing, you'll be okay. All right. What should my cover letter accomplish? It should show that you have tailored the letter to the specific job. You know what the job needs. You know what they're asking for. It should explain your experience in a clear way that matches the information on your resume, but goes into how it's relevant. You want to explain your experiences that relate to the job you want specifically, and you want to explain how your experience and skills fulfills the job requirements and maybe goes a little bit above and beyond. And you want to provide that you can communicate clearly and understand what was being asked. Here's what a heading. It needs the date you're writing it, your mailing address, and standard format. Also, generally include your email address. Make sure that if your personal email address has something like hotchick@gmail or coolkidedgelord trolltastic or something like that, you make a professional email, maybe one that's like your name, like cdvarn85, so think about that. Think about what you have as your email head. Do not use the school email because it'll be cut off when you graduate. And then put the address of the employer. Maybe also include the email address there as well. All right. And it'll look exactly like that. It's all justified to your left. All right. So for simple processing. Introductions. You should greet a specific person, and the greeting should be dear, or maybe just, you don't even have to include dear. Title, last name if you have it, colon, not comma. Commas for informal or personal letters. Colon. Then you also left justify. You don't indent on this. I know that's weird. The reason why you don't indent is because of the internet. So you don't indent. And then you start in. First thing I would do is tell how you find out about the job. So, Dear Miss Hill, I read on the Purdue University Human Resources website about Service Worker 3, and if they have something like a position number, include it. Position at Purdue Village. I would like to speak to you about this job. My strong work ethic and solid teamwork skills make me a good match for the Purdue staff team. Also, my custodial and groundskeeping skills at AA Custodial Services and Donato Nursery and Landscaping make me a good candidate for the Service Worker 3 position. We got 2 examples, all right? And then you explain what the skills are. Now, you're going to go in more detail about this, and you can read on your own the second example at the bottom. This video is already going to be pretty long. All right, then your body paragraph should the following. For the past 4 years, I have been a custodial worker at AA Custodial Landscaping Services. So you're giving how long and where. My strong work ethic and solid teamwork skills helped me move from an hourly worker position to a shift supervisor position. From 2004 to 2005, I worked as a landscaping installation and maintenance specialist and nursery employee at Donato Nursery and Landscaping in San Diego, Texas. I believe that my responsible approach to work in custodial and groundskeeping positions over the past 5 years makes me a good match for Purdue staff and a strong candidate for the Service Worker 3 position at Purdue Village. Notice you're giving 2 examples. You're explaining why they're relevant. You're saying where they were at and how you work through the ranks there. If let's say you haven't done this, and so you don't have a lot of work experience yet, then you're going to use volunteer experience or things that you've done. Now, for privacy reasons, you kind of have to be careful about mentioning anything around religious services. If you did stuff with a church or whatever, that's your choice, but you're disclosing it to your employer by doing so. So it's important to know. So a lot of you are going to rely on like one job and stuff you did in high school as extracurriculars, and that's good enough. They're not expecting a whole lot more from you. at this point in your career. All right. My custodial landscaping includes experience with cleaning tanks, lawn and vegetation, blah, 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 blah. I can use buffers, drills, jigsaw, screwdrivers, etc. In addition, my chef support at AA Custodial 1, I manage bilingual employees, drive equipment for custodial and groundskeeping, tracked work records, and assured quality inspections. So this is going through all the specific things they did. It's also showing some skills that aren't obvious. Like this person had to work with bilingual staff, so they had to communicate with people who didn't speak English or spoke very little English. That they had responsibilities akin to management, not just working the positions, and that might make someone very helpful. You can read this example. Cover letter closings. You restate your qualifications. You ask for an interview. It's important. You provide contact information. You reference your resume. You thank the employer for reading. You close politely and sign your name. If it's a physical copy. If they ask for an email copy, you can sign it, or you can leave it blank, but it should be formatted correctly as if you signed it. I'm looking forward to meeting you about the Service Worker 3 position. That is the best way. I'm looking forward to, it shows confidence, but also that you're grateful. I am sure that my strong work ethic and custodial and landscaping experience can help Purdue Physical Facilities maintain a high level of service. Always mention that you're going to make things good. If you have any questions, please call me at number. And when you do the practice one for me, I want this to be a real cover letter, but you don't give me your phone number, just make one up. For your reference, I have included my resume. Thank you for taking the time to review my document. Okay, this is all still left justified. Sincerely, 4 spaces, sign our digital signature, then type out your whole name, and then put, after 2 spaces, enclosure, resume for Hector Ramon Gomez. All right, that would obviously be your name. Avoid weak language. I worked as a ramp agent at Comair. No. As a ramp agent, I assisted in loading baggage, oversaw fueling the airport, and stocked commissary items of the aircraft. Use strong verbs, just like in school writing. Strong verbs that show that you do things. You want the employer to think that you do things. You do work. That's why they're hiring you, right? It should be only 1 page. I've written a bunch of these in my life. I've had one time that someone's actually asked me to go more than 1 page. You should limit yourself to no more than 2 specific qualifications, but go into detail and make sure it's tailored to the job. And you should begin with topic sentences, kind of like it's an essay. What are you doing? What is the job? How am I qualified for it? When can I meet you to talk about the possibility for getting hired? Section 1, Section 2, Section 3. More tips. Appeal to the company values, good attitudes, projects, specific things you've done. Explain how you will help that organization. Elaborate on information in your resume. Provide evidence of your qualifications and proofread carefully. They'll sometimes have computers look through this with proofreaders and just trash the ones that aren't. And I say this, I'm dyslexic, so I struggle with this, guys. Like, I'm a professional writer, but I'm also dyslexic. I have to be careful with proofreading, and it's important. What should I do if the timer is not working? Short breaks on work experience shouldn't hurt your chances. Be ready to talk about other things you did. Volunteerism. Faith-based activities are okay to mention, but remember you are disclosing your religion by doing so, so that's your right not to mention it. Or if you think it might cause you to be discriminated against. No one has to know what religion you are. It's literally illegal for people to ask. In a job setting, let me rephrase that. Like, people could ask you in the street, right? And family-related responsibilities. Have you had to do things for family that you can verify that would help you out? And I think a lot of you are going to have to do a lot of that because, you don't have a long work experience. Follow-up and thank you letters. Follow-up letters. State that you are still interested in the job if they haven't contacted you. Ask whether or not the employer has seen your document. and explain that you are waiting to hear what to do next. But be very polite. Don't sound annoyed when you do a follow-up letter. And then thank you letters. Send a thank you letter for a job interview. If you get a job interview, you should send that letter. State that you are still interested in the job, ask if the job has been filled or not, and explain what are you waiting to hear next. And if you need help, go to this website, owl.purdue/engagement, and I'm going to give you a lot of these samples and stuff throughout, and we're going to give you a template for setting this up. The cover letter is what messes people up a lot on both this assignment and on jobs in real life, so please, 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 please take this seriously.